Amanda worked as a waitress in a crowded little restaurant in London. That evening, like every evening, the tables were packed with hungry customers, plates were piling up, and the smell of coffee mixed with spicy dishes filled the air. The clock showed almost 10 p.m., but Amanda knew she wouldn't get home before midnight. Her apron was stained with sauce, her feet ached, and she secretly dreamed of a better life. "Being a waitress isn't my dream, but it pays the bills," she whispered, wiping a table with a worn cloth. Suddenly, the entrance door opened quietly. A man walked in, wearing a faded blue sweatshirt and a black cap pulled low over his eyes. He avoided eye contact, as if he didn't want to be recognized. Amanda noticed him immediately. There was something calm, almost shy, in the way he moved. The man sat alone at a table by the window and stared at the menu without really reading it. Amanda approached him, forcing a professional smile despite her tiredness. "Good evening, sir. What would you like to order?" she asked. The man looked up, and she was struck by his gentle, almost vulnerable gaze. "A plate of pasta and an orange juice, please," he replied softly. Amanda noted the order and returned to the kitchen, unaware that this customer would change her life. When she brought his meal, the man nervously searched his pockets. His face turned pale. I think I forgot my wallet," he admitted, embarrassed. Amanda's heart sank. Her boss, a strict man, forbade any form of charity. But faced with the humility of this stranger, she didn't hesitate. Pulling a few bills from her own wallet, she smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, we all have tough days." The man, surprised, promised to pay her back later. Amanda nodded, not knowing she'd just helped N'Golo Kanté, an international football star. She returned to work, oblivious that this act of kindness would spark a chain of events. A few hours after her kind act, Amanda finished cleaning the last tables. Her hands trembled slightly, maybe from exhaustion or the strong coffee she'd gulped down to stay awake. "One more hour and I'm home," she thought, stacking chairs. That's when her boss, a tall man with a stern gray mustache, called her in an icy tone, "Amanda, my office. Now." Her heart racing, she followed him into a small, stifling room cluttered with papers and old menus. The man crossed his arms and stared at Amanda as if she'd committed a crime. "You paid for a customer's meal today, didn't you?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. Amanda swallowed hard. "Yes, but he needed help." The boss slammed his fist on the desk, making a pen jump. "This is not a homeless shelter. You don't get to decide who eats for free." His voice boomed like thunder. Amanda tried to explain, but he raised his hand. "You're fired. Take your things and get out." The words hit her like a slap. "But it was just one meal," she stammered, eyes filling with tears. "Out!" he roared. Amanda, her face burning with shame, grabbed her bag from the locker and left through the back door. The cold night air bit her face, but she felt numb. "I lost my job for helping someone," she muttered, wandering aimlessly through the dark streets. She passed closed shops, their lit-up windows glowing like ghosts. A group of teenagers laughed nearby, but Amanda kept her head down, afraid they'd see her tears. "What now? How will I pay rent?" Her thoughts spiraled. She stopped in front of a 24-hour cafe, drawn to the warm light inside. With the last coins in her wallet, she ordered cheap coffee and sat by the window. The bitter black liquid warmed her hands but not her heart. "I did the right thing. Why did it ruin me?" Her boss's words echoed. "This isn't a charity." Was he right? Was kindness a weakness in this world? Amanda glanced at her phone, hesitating to call Sarah. What if she judges me too? Finally, she stood up and left, leaving the coffee half-finished. The night felt heavier than ever. Amanda walked through the light rain that had started to fall. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, and the sound of cars felt muffled, as if the world were under a glass bell. "No one will understand," she thought, clutching her bag tightly. Her clothes were damp, her hair stuck to her face, but she felt nothing. Only shame burned inside her. She finally stopped in front of a closed park, the rusty gates reminding her of her own mental prison. I should have stayed quiet. I should have obeyed. But no, she didn't regret her choice. Sitting on a cold bench, she pulled out her phone. The screen showed 11:47 p.m. Sarah's still awake, probably watching a show, she told herself. She dialed the number, fingers shaking. Hello? Amanda? Are you okay? Sarah's voice was soft, worried. Those simple words broke Amanda. No, I just got fired, she sobbed. She told her everything. The man in the blue sweatshirt, the money from her wallet, the boss's rage. Sarah listened without interrupting, then sighed. Come to my place, right now. The subway ride felt endless. Amanda stared at colorful ads without seeing them, her bag heavy on her lap. When she arrived, Sarah waited with a blanket and a steaming cup of tea. Sit down, sweetie, Sarah said, guiding her to the couch. Amanda collapsed, exhausted. I'm such a fool. I ruined everything. A fool? No. Sarah sat beside her, firm. You helped someone out of pure kindness. The real fool is your boss. Amanda tried to smile, but tears kept falling. What now? I have no money, no job. We'll figure it out. Tomorrow we'll search for jobs together. Sarah handed her a tissue. But tonight you're staying here. The next morning, Amanda woke early, her eyes swollen. Sarah had already printed job listings. Waitress, cashier, cleaner. Look, there are hundreds of restaurants in London, she said cheerfully. Amanda nodded, but her heart felt heavy. She sent out resumes all day, replying to every email with hope. But hours passed. No calls, no messages. By evening, Amanda stared out Sarah's window. The city glittered, indifferent to her despair. What if no one wants me? She whispered. Sarah took her hand. It'll work out. You'll see. Yet that night, Amanda couldn't sleep. Lying on the couch, she stared at the ceiling, repeating silently, "Why me?" Then her phone buzzed. An unknown message. Amanda, N'Golo Kanté wants to meet you. Amanda stared at the message on her phone, her fingers icy from the cold night. N'Golo Kanté, is this a joke? She wondered, her heart racing. Before she could reply, the headlights of a sleek black car lit up the street. The door opened, and a man in a sharp suit stepped out. Amanda, I'm Daniel. We spoke earlier. N'Golo wants to meet you. She stepped back, wary. Why me? I'm nobody. Daniel smiled, calming her fears. Exactly. You helped him without knowing who he was. That matters to him. Amanda hesitated, getting into a stranger's car, but her desperation won. Okay. The car's interior smelled of new leather. Amanda clenched her hands on her knees, watching London streets blur past. What if this is a trick? She wondered. But Daniel, sitting beside the driver, stayed silent and polite. They stopped at a luxury hotel, with crystal chandeliers and a red carpet at the entrance. Amanda felt tiny in her wrinkled clothes. This way, Daniel said, guiding her to a gold elevator. On the top floor, a door opened to a private room. N'Golo Kanté was there, seated by a floor-to-ceiling window. He wore a simple sweater, nothing like a football superstar. Amanda, thank you for coming, he said with a warm smile. His voice was calm, no arrogance. Nervous, Amanda sat across from him. I don't understand. Why me? Kanté folded his hands. Because you treated me like a human, not a celebrity. In my world, that's rare. He sipped his tea before adding, Chelsea needs someone like you. Chelsea? Amanda nearly knocked over her water glass. But I know nothing about football. That's not what we need. Daniel cut in, placing an envelope on the table. You're good with people. That's what matters. Kanté nodded. The job is simple. Organizing hospitality for the club's guests. Players, families, sponsors. You'd be their first point of contact. Amanda felt a mix of fear and excitement. What if I fail? You already trusted me? Kanté replied with a soft laugh. That's proof enough. After a long pause, Amanda took a deep breath. Okay, I accept. Daniel smiled and handed her a pen. Sign here. Your new life starts tomorrow. Leaving the hotel, Amanda looked at the contract in her hands. Stamford Bridge, she whispered. For the first time in weeks, she truly smiled. The next morning, Amanda stood in front of Stamford Bridge, Chelsea's massive stadium. Sunlight glinted off the giant windows, and blue flags flapped in the wind. It's huge, she whispered, adjusting her new black blazer, bought quickly with Sarah's help. Daniel waited at the entrance, smiling. Welcome to your new office. He gave her a tour of the backstage areas. Clean, modern hallways, giant screens showing past matches, and busy employees speaking multiple languages. Your role? Coordinate VIP guest services, Daniel explained. You'll check reservations, prepare rooms, and ensure everything is flawless. Amanda nodded, scribbling frantic notes. Her first challenge came quickly, a lunch with major sponsors. Make sure 2 guests get gluten-free meals, Daniel instructed. Amanda rushed to the kitchen, sweating under her blazer. Gluten-free, gluten-free, she repeated, double-checking every plate. A chef grumbled, hurry up, newbie, but she finished on time, earning a discreet thumbs up from Daniel. That afternoon, as she organized files, a cold voice spoke behind her. You're the fired waitress, aren't you? Michael, the impeccably dressed director, stared at her like she was a bug. Yes, I'm Amanda, she stammered. He crossed his arms. This isn't a playground. One mistake here costs millions. Understood. Amanda's stomach twisted, but before she could reply, a hand rested on her shoulder. She's learning, Michael. Give her a chance, said Kanté, appearing silently. Michael tightened his lips and left without a word. Kanté smiled at Amanda. Don't listen to him. You're here because you belong here. That evening, back at Sarah's, Amanda collapsed onto the couch. It was rough, but I survived, she said, her feet aching. Sarah laughed. You'll be a pro in no time. Before bed, Amanda reviewed her notes. Tomorrow I'll do better, she promised. For the first time, she couldn't wait to return to the stadium. Weeks passed, and Amanda grew more confident. The once scary halls of Stamford Bridge now felt familiar. She memorized players' names, learned sponsors' preferences, and even the chefs smiled at her. Amanda, the Japanese guests are arriving. Set up the Sakura room, Daniel called out one morning. She nodded, ready. The Sakura room was decorated with cherry blossom branches and red lanterns. Perfect. But something's missing, Amanda muttered, adjusting tablecloths. She ran to fetch origami napkins for a personal touch. When the guests entered, their eyes lit up. Beautiful, one exclaimed. Daniel gave her a wink, but challenges still came. One afternoon, a picky sponsor criticized the wine selection. This isn't a 2010 Bordeaux? Unacceptable, he snapped. Amanda, cheeks burning, apologized and sprinted to the wine cellar. Find a 2010 Bordeaux now, she ordered the wine expert. When she returned with the bottle, the sponsor mumbled, well done. One day, while sorting files, she found an email from her old boss. Heard you're doing well. Congrats. The tone was sarcastic. Amanda clenched her fists, then smiled. You tried to break me. Look at me now, she thought. Michael, the strict director, softened slightly. On a Friday, he passed her in the elevator. Your work on the charity event. It was acceptable, he grumbled before leaving. Acceptable? That's practically praise. Amanda laughed, telling Sarah later. The real turning point came during a visit from players' families. A lost child cried near the locker rooms. Amanda calmed him with candy and a stadium tour. Later, his grateful mother thanked her in front of Kanté. You're amazing, he said, visibly proud. That evening, Amanda sat in the empty stands. The quiet stadium reminded her of the old restaurant. But here, she felt at home. I'm not the scared girl anymore, she whispered. Her phone buzzed. Important meeting tomorrow. The next morning, Amanda walked into Chelsea's meeting room, her heart racing. Directors in dark suits sat around a glass table, their serious eyes fixed on files. Daniel motioned for her to sit. "Amanda, we've reviewed your work these past months," he began. She clasped her hands under the table, hoping she hadn't messed up. Kanté, seated at the far end, gave a quiet smile. "You've transformed guest services. Players, sponsors, everyone praises you," he said. Amanda blushed, stunned. Michael, the strict director, cleared his throat. "Your charity event planning brought in 20% more donations. That's impressive." Daniel slid an envelope toward her. "In recognition, we're offering you a new role, hospitality supervisor." Amanda's mouth fell open. "You'll lead a team, manage budgets, and oversee all club events," Kanté explained. "But I've never managed anyone," she protested, hands trembling. "You've handled worse crises," Daniel laughed, recalling the Bordeaux incident. "And you saved a lost child. That's leadership." After a pause, Amanda signed the contract, tears dotting the paper. "Thank you. I won't let you down," she whispered. Leaving, she called Sarah, her voice shaky. "I got promoted," she yelled. Sarah screamed with joy. "I knew you'd shine there." That evening, Amanda returned to the empty stadium. The lights were off, the stands silent. She sat on the players' bench, brushing her fingers over the fresh grass. "My old boss was wrong. Kindness isn't weakness," she thought. Days later, she led her first team meeting. Young staff listened intently. "We'll create surprises for players' kids. Special tours, personalized gifts," she announced. Heading home, a message from Kanté popped up. "Congratulations, supervisor. The club is in good hands." Amanda smiled, gazing at London's glittering skyline. "This is just the beginning," she told herself. A year later, Amanda organized Chelsea's biggest charity event. Golden lights lit up the stadium, live musicians played, and laughing children ran around in club jerseys. Wearing an elegant dress, Amanda adjusted her microphone, ready to speak to hundreds of people. "This is unbelievable," she whispered, staring at the crowd. Suddenly, a man in a black suit approached. "Amanda," it was her old boss, his face tense. "I wanted to say, you made it." Amanda, surprised, shook his hand. "Thank you, but it's thanks to those who gave me a chance." The man nodded awkwardly before vanishing into the crowd. Kanté, standing near the stage, gave her a thumbs up. "Go on. This is your moment." Amanda took a deep breath. "Good evening, everyone." Her clear voice echoed through the stadium. She spoke about kindness, second chances, and how a small act could change everything. Helping someone is like passing a ball. You never know where it'll land. The crowd cheered loudly. Sarah, crying, yelled, "That's my best friend." Daniel handed her a glass of champagne. "You've become the club star," he said proudly. Later, Amanda walked alone on the field, her heels clicking on the grass. "Remember our first meeting?" Kanté asked, joining her. She laughed. "How could I forget the man with no wallet?" He smiled. "You taught me a lesson. Humility is real strength." Back home, Amanda glanced at a framed photo in her living room. Her, Kanté, and smiling kids from the event. "All this because I paid for one meal." The next day, a newspaper headline read, "Amanda, the woman who gave Chelsea its heart back." She shared the article with Sarah, adding, "Life's funny. Yesterday I was a waitress. Today, I'm changing lives." If the story inspired you, leave a like to support stories like this. Subscribe so you don't miss future adventures. And comment below. Have you ever experienced a moment where kindness changed everything? See you next time.